new to 3D printing or just want to learn some nifty new useful tricks, then this is the video for you. I have taken all of the tips and tricks that I've done in recent videos and popped them onto the single video so it is more convenient. Starting off with this one. Okay, to start off with, we have ourselves a box here, which we're just going to quickly group up to make it hollow so we can put stuff in it. And now that we have it in our actual slicer, you're going to run into an issue here, and that's where this tip is and things that you definitely should know. These corners on like squares, rectangles, sharp edges are very prone to warping or curling under this bit right here. So this little corner right here can warp upwards as you print it, and it might look like good at first, but then once you get a little bit higher up, it'll start curling. It's a nightmare. Now, the way that I fix this is to add brim to it. For those of you that don't know, you can add brim to outer or inner, and I've set it to 7mm for this. The default's 5, probably would be fine, but 7, not going to add much extra time and just guarantees this works nicely. And then when you slice this plate, you'll notice that there's a little extra outline around the actual box here. This is your brim. Now, usually you would use this for like bed adhesion, but because of the fact that this does help give with bed adhesion, it stops these corners from curling upwards as well. And this is how I deal with this. If I'm printing anything like a box or that's going to be flat like this and has like sharp edges that I'm concerned that might curl a little bit, it might warp a little bit, and that's how I fix this. Now, hopefully this one's going to save you a bit of money on the materials that you're using for your printer. And that's because you have a couple of options when actually buying this stuff. So first of all, you have this stuff that'll come like wrapped around the spool, ready to go straight out of the box. Then right now, I order most of my stuff, especially whites and blacks, directly from Bambu Labs themselves. The reason being is you can actually get these in a refill spool rather than having the actual full thing. You get them in a refill, it's cheaper, and also you can bulk buy them and that sort of stuff. Now, this is still relevant to everybody who doesn't use Bambu Labs too, because I'm sure that other companies will offer the same sort of thing, but if not, you can still do this, and I'll explain how. Now, the reason that I buy these is because they're cheaper without the spool with it, but also being Bambu Labs, it's really good quality stuff. The stuff they send you is great quality, and it also works immediately with the AMS. Your printer will detect exactly what's in it. However, even if you don't use Bambu Labs printers, you can still grab this knowing it's good quality, get it in bulk, and then all you need to do is, rather than buying the spools that they sell on the website with that, is just 3D print them. You don't ever need to actually buy these spools. I have a couple because it came with my bulk order, right? But otherwise, just 3D print the actual spools here, and they work just absolutely perfect. The AMS can still tell exactly what's on there because the way that it works is like a tag on the actual PLA and not on the spool. And these are perfect. I've never had any issues with these whatsoever. They are absolutely the same size and work perfectly with the AMS. And so buying refills, no matter what actual like printer you're using, you can still print the spool for them and pop the refills on the spool and use it just as if you would any other. So it's definitely worth considering the fact that you have multiple options: the actual refill, print your spools and pop them on, or just buying them direct like this. And you also end up with what do you guys do with all of these? I have no idea. I've thought about like building a car for my son or something, but I don't need 50 of them. I don't know what to do with these. Is there any actual use that you guys make from them? I don't know. Let me know. Very quick interruption to say thank you to you guys for supporting the channel. This growth has been insane. I cannot believe it. It has blown me away. So thank you. But if you are enjoying these sort of videos and you want to see more, then please do subscribe, and I'll make sure that they always get better and always as good quality as possible. Back to the video. All right, with number 3, we're going to try and save you some time, some money, and also improve the quality of your prints as well. And I promise you it's super easy. When you pop a print into your actual slicer, something you always want to consider is the rotation of your item. Now, a lot of people would pop this in here like beginners. I know I used to do this. Is pop something in, you're gonna be like, this is gonna be floating over here, so I'm gonna need supports, which you've enabled over here with the trees and stuff. And then you'd hit slice, and then you'd pop it onto print. But when you slice this, you're gonna notice that we're gonna be spending a good amount of time and extra filament on actually supporting all of these different regions. In fact, we have the supports all the way around the outside of this and one supporting the middle here. And we don't need these at all. If you were printing it normally like this, you absolutely would. But what we can do is just flip it on its head like this. This is how I print these, and then slice it again. We'll leave the support on, and you'll notice that we no longer need any supports whatsoever. We have none in the middle, none there. There is some in here, but you can just turn supports off. You don't need them there, trust me, you don't need them. But you save all the time. There's way more time saved, way more filament saved, which is money, of course. Always before you print, consider if there's a better way for you to rotate an object. But Another thing is the very first layer here will actually look so clean and beautiful and tidy because it's on the print bed. Anything on the print bed sort of melts and fuses together really clean. It comes out so beautiful. If it's the very last layer line, they can come out a little bit scuffed. But if it's on the print bed, it fuses together, it looks so smooth and nice. And also if it's on an angle, it comes out really nice as well. So it's something to consider your rotation as well in terms of actually the print quality too. And also worth mentioning, if you do want a potion lamp, well, I'll put them on screen finished somewhere. The link for them's in the description. It's free. You can go ahead and get it and hopefully you enjoy it. Moving on, we have a suggestion from one of the viewers. If you have more, guys, then drop them in the comments and we'll put you in the next video too. But maintaining your printer is something that nobody wants to learn to do, but absolutely should learn to do because it will save you a ton of headaches in the future, and I promise you this. Now, the best way to learn how to maintain your printer is to go to the manufacturer's website of that printer and follow their directions. Probably the best thing you can do. I get it though, your printer comes, you just want to print everything, you just want to get out of the box and see how it all works. Do that, absolutely, and then at some point sit down and just spend a little bit of time learning about how to keep it maintained, running smoothly and clean and all that sort of stuff, and you will save yourself a massive amount of headaches, I promise you. My printers are running all the time, non-stop, selling stuff, making stuff for videos, all this sort of thing. They do not turn off, they're always printing. I've had 2 issues the whole time, and they're both, one of them was because I bought really bad, terrible, cheap PLA, rookie mistake. It killed my nozzle when I put it through, killed my second printer's nozzle when I put it through. It was the PLA, trust me, holy crap, never again. But secondly, this happened yesterday. That part's been replaced now, so that printer's back up and running, which is great. Treat your printers well, they'll treat you well, they'll keep the quality coming, and you don't want to run into issues, especially if you're selling as well. How many of you guys have this? A ton of rolls with leftover PLA that doesn't quite have enough left on there to do a full print of something usually, and you're kind of like, what do I do with it? You're hanging on to it. You don't want to let it go because you paid for it. Don't throw them out. Don't do it, because you can absolutely use this for so many different things. But I mean, the most obvious one is smaller prints. If you do end up needing them, I guarantee you throw this out, you're going to need it tomorrow. Like, this is how it works. I'm going to print something small. I could have used this. But at the same time, you can use all these on the exact same print. Now, all you need to do is pop this on, start the actual print, and then when it runs out, your printer will just pause, and then you can just add the next one on. And then when that runs out, you can just add the next one on. Now, you can definitely do that, but it is also worth noting that if it's something that needs to look pretty, there's a good chance you'll have a layer line where you've changed the filament, whether that's because it's like cooled down and then you're putting more PLA on again and whatever. But when you change the PLA and you stop and start an actual print, you generally can see like a little bit of a layer line when you do that. Don't waste your money, regardless of how much is left on there. Just use it. There's no reason not to. But okay, but really, I need you guys to tell me, what do you do with the empty spools after? I still don't know. Please let me know in the comments. We have these bad boys right here. Put it in front of the face. So there we go. The glue sticks, the Bamboo Labs, or whatever brand your printer is, glue sticks. You don't need them. They're a complete waste of money. You do not need them, and I have only been using these this whole time. I would never buy another one of those Bamboo Labs glue sticks. That's the one that came with my printer. However, these random old cheapest that I could possibly find glue sticks from The Works in the UK, if you guys want to use the exact same one, if it'll focus, these are absolutely fine. I bought a pack of these when I got my 3D printers like nearly 3 years ago now, and I literally have never ran out of them. There's just a pack of different sizes and they work perfectly. What I do is just apply a thin layer one way across the whole thing and then apply it across the other way so it makes a nice coverage, and then that is it. All you need are these regular old glue sticks. You do not need the expensive Bamboo Labs or whatever brand you have. Don't waste your money. Let's get a little controversial with this one. Don't touch your print beds with your fingers. Make sure you wash your print beds every single print. Man, that is I don't get where this comes from. I swear, I never look how bad this is. This has been probably about a month worth of printing, and I just don't even care. It'll be absolutely fine. This will be absolutely fine. Once it heats up again, the glue gets all melted and stuff. It's not gonna be a problem. Now, I never have adhesion issues with this at all. Now, maybe this is because it's Bamboo Labs. I don't know. But either way, you don't need to worry too much about if you touch the print bed when you're taking something off, or if you are going to be washing it every single time. In fact, I would argue that I have more issues with print adhesion, or I used to, when I used to clean this thing if I thought there was an issue. Instead, just whack another bit of glue on where it didn't stick and just It's fine. It's absolutely fine. The only time I will wash this is if, for example, there's like bits of dust or whatever on there, but I mean, it doesn't really happen enough for my printers because I use it all the time, 24/7. If there's dust or dirt or bits of plastic that's stuck to it and it's affecting my other prints, the print quality of the first layer or something, then I will of course wash it and make sure that's fine. But otherwise, if you're just printing a functional thing, or if you're printing something that the very first layer doesn't, like, it's not going to get ruined, it's fine. I'm going to put this back on right now, and I'm going to run a print on it, and I'm not going to clean it. It doesn't matter. My finger's been all over it. It'll be absolutely fine. Speaking of bed adhesion, though, this is by far the best setting for bed adhesion, in my opinion. I've just grabbed this off of the like online Bamboo Labs thing, and this will work on pretty much everything, right? If you're not even on the slicer, I'm sure you'll have an option for this. However, the best thing for bed adhesion, in my opinion, is Brim. I use Brim all the time, not even just for bed adhesion, which we'll cover in another video, but Brim allows you to add basically something on the outside of your print to stick it down to the build plate just a little bit better. So if you are worried that you're printing something, say like this cartridge here, this could quite easily fall over or, like, you know, get displaced because there's not that much of the actual item stuck to the bed. So you add on the Brim, put about 5, whatever, 5 usually works perfectly. I usually do about 5. Sometimes I'll do 7 if I'm like really concerned, if it's something really thin, and then just press slice plate, and you'll notice that there's like a little outline here around the actual object, but there is a tiny gap between it where it does slightly stick to it, but it peels off beautifully. So easily this will just peel off, and you'll have no problems with bed adhesion in most situations when you're printing awkward things like this. As for like actual print quality, this stuff peels off beautifully, like I said, and it really has never been an issue for me. And I sell plenty of things on Etsy and merch from other channel and that sort of stuff, right? So it's really not a big deal. Moving on, we're going to talk about your infill pattern. Now down here on the left hand side in Bamboo Labs, you'll see that there's your option to change what pattern you want to print the infill or the inside part of your actual prints, right? Now there's so many to pick from, and you can think like, why would I want, what does it matter? And it can matter. For certain things, it can definitely change the strength of it or the quality of it in certain situations. However, 99.9% of the time, I promise you, I use gyroid for like everything, like absolutely everything. And the person who made this also picked gyroid, so they know the secret. However, the reason I use gyroid is when I was using grid when I first started, I kept having to deal with this grindy like clicking noise, and I was like, what's going on? I found out that the nozzle was basically dragging its way across the actual grid print because it overlaps. Gyroid is so great because it will not overlap itself when it does the actual print. It'll go along these lines here, and then it'll come back along these lines here, and it never overlaps itself, and you never have a chance of knocking prints off of the bed. Speaking of infill, the next thing we're going to talk about is, well, infill, but the actual density of the infill. This is a huge tip. It's going to save you materials. It's going to save you time, which will save you money. Honestly, it's definitely worth knowing about. And that is, certain things will not need to have the default amount of infill density. Right now in Bamboo Labs, the default, at least for me, I don't know if it changes depending on your printer or not, but 15% is the default that I always have. Now, when I slice this plate, you're going to notice that Mr. T-Rex here, which is a wall-mounted sort of T-Rex that I printed for my son a while ago, is actually going to take a hell of a long time. You notice here it says it's going to take 9 hours and 31 minutes. That's a hell of a long time. It's also going to be 250 grams of PLA, or just under 250 grams, but there's no reason, and in fact, I don't want this T-Rex to be in 15% density. One, if I bring it down to something like 7%, it'll print absolutely fine. Yes, it will be a little bit weaker, but this is going on a wall. I'm not throwing it around, I'm not moving it, I'm not playing with it, and it doesn't have a function other than to sit on the wall and look pretty. But another thing to consider as well is this will make it lighter, meaning that it can go on the wall way easier, and if you use mounting tape instead of like screws and stuff, it'll be all good. Now, just from changing this from 15% to 7%, we are on 6 hours and 43 minutes. And 178 grams of PLA. This is huge. This is not even like 6 hours and 43 minutes. I don't even remember what the minutes in the 9 hours was, but it doesn't matter because the amount that has changed is huge. So keep in mind when you're actually printing things that you can change the infill density and it'll be absolutely fine. Like certain prints like this, it doesn't matter. I could probably even go lower on this. Like, look at this. This looks absolutely fine. I could probably drop this down to like 5% and we wouldn't have any issues. But even if you just left it at 7, which I think is what I did last time, it's all good. No one's gonna be touching this. It's out of reach. You want it to be light anyway. And also, if you are printing stuff to actually ship and post to someone, consider the fact that you'll be saving weight as well. So saving money in postage and stuff as well. So a lot of you guys suggested to use these to wrap your cables around, whether it's extension leads to keep them organized or Christmas tree line. However, it turns out that Make World and Thingiverse and all these places have a ton of designs built around these so you can use them on for future things. Whether you're turning it into a roll of filament that's actually a lamp, or whether you're using it to create storage boxes and many other awesome things as well. But my personal favorite is this here. This is a hardware rack that allows you to use the spools with drawers in it, put it over a base, and then you can just pull out all these drawers and fill it with all the little bits and pieces that you have all over the place. There's so many things you could fit into here. I could easily probably fill maybe 3 to 5 of these spools with little drawers like this. There's so many ideas like this, so have a look through, see what you can find, make yourself something cool, and reuse the spools. And a really good tip to know is when you are doing really long 3D prints and things that you're going to be investing a lot of time into in one go, you don't want to run into any issues halfway through. So it's a really good habit to get into. Whenever you are planning to start a very long duration print, just maybe consider the fact that, have I run calibrations recently? Maybe I should check if my belt tensions are correct. Is there anything I can do to maybe clean around the 3D printer to make sure nothing goes wrong? There will be nothing worse than if I got halfway through this print and something went wrong, completely ruining it and wasting the amount of time it took. It took a very long time. The amount of time that it'll take you to run a calibration and then start the print, or maybe just make sure that your belts are tensioned correctly. Check that there's nothing that could maybe get mixed up in the actual print itself as well before you leave it, because in the long run, it's going to save you money and massive headaches if things do go wrong. As mentioned, things that I would check is one, if you haven't done a calibration in a while on your printer, then yes, you'll probably be okay, but just run it. You might as well. It's going to need doing at some point, and I guarantee this will be the time that it needs it. 2, check that everything for your printer is maintained correctly, in the sense of check that you don't need any grease, check that your belts are maintained properly, check that all around the nozzle and stuff is nice and clean, and you're not going to run into any issues 8 or 9 hours into the print. 3, have a look around the actual printer and make sure nothing can fall or get in the way of it, because man, I have had it before where the bed itself has got jammed on like a cardboard box that was overlapping it, because my office is a nightmare, and the whole print was just, yeah, well, I had to start again. It was not a great time. And I'm sure there's other things that you can check as well for your setup, but honestly, have a think about it, and before you put a super long print on, just make sure you've checked a few things just to save yourself in the long run. Now, something that could be super useful to know about is you can actually add modifiers or negative parts and all sorts of stuff to your actual models in the Bamboo Lab slicer. If you have I don't know, any sort of print that maybe needs a little bit more strength in certain places, necessarily not with this, but this is just an example I'm going to be using, you can actually right click and press add modifier and then pick whatever shape that suits you best. So for this one, we'll just do a cylinder because it's going to be nice and easy for you guys to see, and then pop that wherever it needs to go. Now, when you have this, you'll notice on the left-hand side here, you actually have your objects list. Now, if you actually click on the cylinder and make sure that's selected, you can see at the bottom, it says frequent, quality, strength, speed, and others, right? So on here, you can see that I can actually set an infill density to whatever I want, right? So if I put this on 50% and then maybe increase the wall loops by like 5 or something, when I now press slice plate, what's going to change here is the actual cylinder that I put will have a bigger infill density and more wall loops than the rest of the print. So if you needed specifically this part of the actual print to be stronger, have a higher infill, or have more walls because it needs it for any sort of reason, whether it's to make a print stronger, maybe it's for a quality reason, that sort of thing, you can just add the modifier to it, and then this specific place will get those changes. You can also change loads of different things like quality. You can have ironing, you can do the speed of that part of the print, and many other things as well. So it's definitely worth taking a look through this and knowing about it. You can move this around wherever you want, and of course you can use different shapes and scale it around to whatever you need it to do, and that way when you do come to print the actual object, you can get those changes that you need without having to actually edit them in yourself. Other things that you can do, of course, is to add negative parts or add positive parts. So if you had a negative part, say for example, you actually needed to add a screw hole to something so that you could, screw it to the wall. You're never going to do that with a wedge, but it's just an example. you can add the negative part, scale it to the size that you need, and then when you slice it again, you didn't have to spend too much time editing in screw holes in another program. You can just add it in here. Knowing that you can make these sort of changes directly inside the slicer is definitely useful, and I use these ones quite a lot. Moving on, we're going to talk about something that confused me when I first got started, and that was supports. Okay. Supports. You have two options for supports. We're going to flip this thing on its head in a way that it actually needs support, so we can even talk about this. And the first one that we'll mention and show you here is tree supports, which is obvious for why it's called that, because it looks like a tree branch, right? It looks like a tree that's grown out of the ground. Perfect. The next one that you can get, though, is the normal supports, the one that's the default in the slices for most slices as well. And that gives you this. It's like a little bit of a zigzag, as you can see, and it goes all the way up. Now, the major differences that you're going to see with these is look how much filament you're using for the normal supports compared to the tree supports. In most situations, you are going to want to probably, this is controversial maybe, I don't know, let me know in the comments what you guys actually use the most, but I always use tree supports whenever I can. If there's any situation that I don't use tree supports, it's usually actually with a model like this. If you actually wanted to print this in this orientation for some reason, or if you had another part that, you know, it overhanged like this and it had a perfectly flat edge on the bottom there, you may want to use normal supports just to make sure that you don't have any sort of stringing filament at the bottom. However, 9 times out of 10, tree supports are probably going to be your better option. It uses less filament, which saves you time as well, and they're also way easier to remove, at least in my experience. But go crazy, guys. In the comments, do you use normal supports, tree supports? Does it matter? Does it depend? Let me know what you guys think, but 99% of the time, tree supports is where it's at. If you haven't started getting into the 3D modeling side of printing, it is definitely worth doing so. If you haven't already looked into this at all and you have no experience, then a great place to start is Tinkercad. This is where I design quite a lot of like my simple models because I'm still learning myself, and you know, this is a brilliant place to get used to how the basics work. Once you understand the basic fundamentals of 3D modeling for printing, you'll start looking at things that you found online as well, if that's what you usually do, looking at like models from Thingiverse or Bamboo Labs Maker World, that sort of thing. And you'll actually think, hey, maybe I can improve on this. Maybe I can actually make something of my own version of this as well. And you'll start learning more than you already did. A great example of this is this wall torch in the back here. I spent ages editing and making this actually usable, that you can put a cable through the bottom all the way through the top. It wasn't possible to do in the first place. It was actually designed just to put a tea light in the top. I wanted to use a flame bulb and I wanted to have it as an actual plug socket wall torch. So while this isn't my actual design, the edits that I've done makes it way more usable for myself. And yes, if you guys are interested, the link to this is in the description. But honestly, learning the basics of 3D modeling is something that is absolutely worth it. Even if you just start very small and just do the very, very basics of putting holes in things, hollowing things out, maybe just chopping off stuff and cropping off edges, it's still worth learning about. So give it a go. 3D printing is way easier if you have the right tools, and these are all insanely cheap. Starting off with this. This is the best super glue that money can buy, and you are going to need super glue as someone who does 3D prints. So this is Super Fast Plus, and I promise you this is the strongest super glue with the activator that I have ever used in my life. Put a little line of super glue on there, make sure you've sprayed it with the activator, pop these together, and I shit you not, it's already set. Like, this thing is ready to go already. For me to buy both of these, it cost me around about £10 or $13 for those of you in the US. And the amount of use you get out of it, because really you're only going to be using a tiny bit, it lasts a hell of a long time. So if you are looking for a good super glue for your 3D prints, this stuff is literally a miracle. Moving on, we have isopropyl alcohol. This is a must-have. I swear to you, you're going to use this all the time. You're going to use it to clean your print beds, you're going to use it to maintain your printer, and it also has some post-processing effects for 3D prints as well. Pair it with a microfiber cloth and just wipe down the print bed with a little bit of this every single print, and apparently people swear that is the best way to get bed adhesion. I still use glue sticks, but I'm going to test it out soon. Cost me around about £6.60, I believe, for this size, which I believe is around about $8 or $9 for you guys in the US. So it is definitely a cheap product, but something you will use a hell of a lot. Now, maybe you're interested in colored 3D prints and you don't have an AMS, or you want to save a bit of time and money. Small things where there's like, you know, slight color changes can be very easily done by adding a little bit of paint. Now, of course, you could print in color, but this takes a long time. There's a lot of material purge, and when you're printing something so small like this, you may not necessarily necessarily want to do that. Now, really simply, I use acrylic paints that I water down very thin, regardless of whether I'm using an airbrush or not. Watering them down very thin will give you a nice even coat to the actual print, and it will come out really nicely. Now, if you're painting a full thing, it is definitely worth getting a plastic primer, but if you just want to add a tiny piece of detail to something like this, you don't need to cover the whole thing in primer. Just make sure your paint's thin, do a couple of coats, and it will come out decent. So if you do want to add a bit of color to your 3D prints, but don't want to deal with the AMS and filament changes and purges, then acrylic paints watered down is the way to go. Now, pliers are something you're gonna want to have when doing 3D printing. Removing supports, genuinely easy, but sometimes you'll print something where supports are a nightmare, or in a place where you just kind of can't get your fingers. I mean, my fingers are a little bit fat there, you know, this is helpful. Having some needle nose pliers, something that you can reach into those awkward places, is a lifesaver, can save you a lot of time. And trust me, there will be times that you're trying to remove a support, even if it's a tree support, something like that, and you're thinking, why is this thing not coming off? Now, regardless of the reason for that, having pliers like this at the time is definitely going to be useful. Picking up a pair of pliers like these, only going to set you back a few dollars or pounds, and definitely something you're going to want to have in your drawer at some point. And the majority of them have wire strippers or cutters as well, so multiple uses. Another product that you're definitely going to want to spend a little bit of money on is desiccant. Now, if you store your filament in an airtight container, or maybe you have an AMS, you are absolutely going to want to have some of this, and you can buy it online for fairly cheap in bulk. Desiccant can also be collected, which is where these came from filament rolls. Anytime you order filament, there's a very good chance you'll get at least one pack or a couple of packs in the package. And if you buy anything that comes with it, store this in a nice dry place because you can use it in the future. I keep all of the desiccant that I have to top up the AMS that I have there. And yes, they may need to be changed more often than, like, you know, if you buy specific ones for it, but you can just rip them out, pop these ones in, and then change them regular to keep all the filament nice and dry. The reason that you would want to use desiccant with your filament though is to make sure that it stays as dry as possible, because that will increase your print quality. If your filament gets damp or absorbs any moisture at all, it can very quickly affect print quality. So spending a little bit of money on desiccant to make sure your filament is nice and moisture free is definitely worth it.